Hey, I'm Suzanna Lanier, actor and acting coach for over 25 years.
I'm Jess Greenberg, casting director for over 10 years.
We're here to help you navigate this crazy, creative, and sometimes chaotic journey into the film and television world.
We share our insights as to what works.
And invite some pretty spectacular guests to share more ideas to move you on your journey.
So without further ado, let's get into the show.
Today, we have the pleasure of talking to actor, writer, producer Jesse Camacho, whose credits include Netflix's Locke and Key, Agent Binky, and HBO Canada's Less Than Kind. Welcome, Jesse. Hey!
Thank you so much for having me. Feels so overdue to hang out.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for being here. It's funny. My nephew watches the show on Disney called Jessie. I think it's with Debbie Ryan, and the theme song is "Hey Jesse." So it's literally been stuck in my head this whole time, and I'm like, I need to say that on the pod.
Yeah,
I mean, some residuals.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be great. Okay, so let's get into it. You started acting at a really young age. So tell us about it. How old were you exactly, and how did that happen?
Well, I think I came out of the womb ready to go. I was always like a performer. I was always trying to be the center of attention. And I think I was probably around 5 when I started asking my parents, like, I want to be on TV. I want to be on stage and all that stuff. And there was definitely some trepidation on their part. There was like, do you really? I was a sensitive kid. I'm still pretty sensitive. And they're like, there's a lot of rejection. Is this really the road you want to go down? And then following when I was about 8 years old, they went, okay, all right, we'll give this a shot, Yeah. So I was lucky. I got to get my foot in the door through them at a young age, but there was some trepidation on their part for sure.
Okay, so it wasn't them like pushing you to do it or like, come try out what we do.
Certainly not.
Jesse's parents are both actors, Pauline Little and Mark Camacho. So everybody kind of knows that, but just for those who didn't. So they knew what the business was like and they knew what they were getting you into. And so this was not their idea for you.
Certainly not.
Okay.
No, and of course, once I committed, they were very supportive and they had my back, and it definitely made the shorthand of talking about certain things easier. Dinner table conversation is always interesting.
Okay, so take us back to like your first audition, because like usually as kids, yes, there is a lot of rejection, but I find a lot of times kids there's not a lot of kid actors, so it's like you take what's
it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. So how did it happen for you, those first gigs?
So again, I was super, super fortunate. When people ask me, like, how did I get into the industry? I say, don't ask me. Like, because I was lucky I had my foot in the door. My dad and my mom were able to get me, sign me up with their agent at the time, a great agent named Molly. And so that was really fun. But yeah, my first ever audition was for Are You Afraid of the Dark, I believe. It was for a great, cool kind of role where he was the villain, I think, of the episode. And I didn't get it, but I had so much fun in the room. I believe it was at Andrea Kenyon's.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were, so incredibly sweet with me and really kind of, really gave me a good shot and gave me some great feedback, gave my parents great feedback. And so it wasn't, I was super lucky. It wasn't long after that I booked my first gig, which was Big Wolf on Campus. I did an episode of the show called Big Wolf on Campus.
Yeah.
That was with Elite.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. Yeah. So my memories going in the room when I was younger, of course I was nervous, but I just remember just being so excited to go in and like do something, because we always did like plays for our parents and stuff like that. So getting to do that, knowing that like, oh, I can be on TV at the end of this, like this is so exciting. So yeah, I remember, now of course auditions are very nerve-wracking, but when I was a kid, it was like, trying to restrain me, and then I just burst into the room. It was so much fun.
Oh, yeah. Good.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I was super fortunate at a young age for sure.
From what you're saying too, you started working pretty quickly. Like it wasn't like you spent years auditioning and then seems like you booked. I mean, Big Wolf was probably your second or third audition.
Yeah, I think there's a thing sometimes with child actors too. Like you could be not the kid actor of the moment, because I certainly don't think I was that. But when there's a new kid that like can perform
Yeah.
somewhat decently, I think there's a bit of a feeding frenzy. So yeah, those first couple of years, I was lucky to book a bunch of fun little jobs. I did this great one called Tales of the Never-Ending Story, which was
Nice.
a live action series here. Yeah, I did 6 or 7 episodes of that, and then of course, eventually I hit that part where I was like, oh, okay, you don't book everything you read for, and I went through huge dry spells,
Yeah.
but I was a kid, as much as my parents were going, hey, enjoy this while it lasts. It doesn't always work this way. Like, you book things in bunches sometimes. But I learned that lesson as I kind of started to get into high school, and I wasn't just a little kid anymore. I went through the awkward phases where I wasn't working at all. And so, yeah, but I again, yes, when I first started auditioning, I was lucky. I booked quite a few jobs when I was a kid.
Yeah. And I guess at that age too, you're in school, you have your friends, there's the distractions. It's not like as an adult where you're needing to work to support a life. So it's a bit of a different, I mean, it still could get into your head, right? You're like, when will be the next thing? But different stressors, I would probably.
Yeah. And, I think that's a great point, because it kind of probably affected my academics in a negative way, because I knew from such a young age, I was like, well, this is what I want to do. So I didn't fail any grades or anything, but, I wasn't putting as much effort as I, probably should have, because I was like, well, I want to be an actor. So care about math. And what do I need geometry for? Like, I'm going to be an actor. And my parents were always like, look, like, let's, just finish high school, do some CEGEP, and then that's great. But it's always good. They were very careful to, like, be supportive and be very happy for me, and always supported the dream, but they wanted me to be a kid first and foremost. Like,
right.
I remember getting auditions sometimes, and my dad would go, let's go over this next week. Why don't you go out with your friends and, like, do something fun, like, even more than I was. I was like, screw that, I'll see them next week, let's work on this.
Wow.
And I goes, no, trust me, my mom and my dad, they were like, you're gonna regret it, have fun, like, go out.
Yeah.
So, and I'm very grateful for that, because of course now, obviously acting my passion, it's everything I want to do, but that time, as we all grow up and people split off, that valuable time with your friends is not as common.
Yeah.
Right. How did the other kids react to you in class? Like, in class, did you have that people teasing you, or were they, like, in awe of you because you got to be on TV, or a bit of both?
Well, I think, like, I always used to say about especially my high school experience, I think in elementary, we were all kind of young and kids thought it was cool, but, I wasn't, it was very surface level. Like, if you weren't, like, the lead of a huge Disney show, kids in elementary school didn't really get it. They're like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
But yeah, getting into high school, it definitely made, like, everyone the joke I make is everyone in the school knew who I was, but I wasn't popular. Like, I was liked enough. Like, again, I use this example. If there was, like, a big party at my high school for all the popular kids, and I was at the party, no one would question why I was at the party, but no one would invite me to the party.
Right.
That was sort of the.
You could just show up.
Like, yeah, of course he's here. If I was there, people were like, of course, yes, Camacho, the actor, of course, come on in.
Yeah.
But no one would think to call me and tell me this. So yeah, kids thought it was cool, but I certainly, again, people liked me, and I had a decent reputation and everything, but I certainly wasn't considered, like, popular or cool. I was the kind of kid who had a cool side thing going on. Yeah, right. He acts and stuff sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, it was nice, but it certainly didn't. I didn't have the spotlight on me in high school or anything.
Right, and it didn't scar you either. Like, they weren't like, oh, you're the kid on that show or whatever. It just was sort of, oh yeah, you were recognizable, but not this. It didn't put you on a pedestal. Out, because I did remember seeing you in a play, and you were playing, like, an older man. I think you're playing the teacher. Katie was in it too. Katie Breyer was in it.
So that was High School Musical.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we did High School Musical, and I didn't want to do it because I had done a play the year before that was so bad that the principal of the school had banned plays. for the next couple of years because we did one called The Haunting of Chip Lake Lodge. That was so bad. But then he trusted Katie. So Katie put on High School Musical.
Yeah. I remember you were playing like a teacher or something. Like Jesse has to play like an
playing Troy's dad. Yeah.
The dad.
Troy's dad.
Well, the only reason is because I didn't have to sing and dance. She said, will you do it? And I said, I can't sing, I can't dance. She goes, all you have to do is for the coach. And her deal with me, which she goes, come in for the last week rehearsals, rehearse your 3 scenes, and then show up on the night of the show. So okay. Right. And actually, that was one of the best shows we put on. She was great. Katie played Sharpay, which is the villain of that show, and she was wonderful. She did a great job.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I always think it's so fun to see and people when they knew each other when they were young and they're all still pursuing it as adults. And we talked about this before we started recording, how when you took my class, you took it with Alex, who's doing super well, Katie, who's on The Boys, and I didn't even know this, writing Hallmark movies with Erica, who is also in class, and they're like starring in and writing Hallmark movies and also doing a whole lot of other stuff. And Alex Harouche, who had done Degrassi, and now he's still working. And you guys were all in the same class. Like, I find that amazing. Just that you're in my class, but regardless, you guys were all in the same class. You all moved to Toronto, which I was sad about. Like the whole class left me. I was like, bye guys, and they all left at the same.
That's true. We literally all like
left. I was like, I gotta get some new students. I lost the whole gang, but they're all doing super well. Like you turn on TV and there they are. They're like working. They're full-time actors. Wasn't like that all the time. I know some of you had day jobs at the beginning, but we talk about this in previous episodes. 10 years later, it's like, wow.
Well, if you'll indulge a little story, because so Katie and I went to high school together. We were good buddies in high school. We did the plays. I was shooting a series in Winnipeg called Less Than Kind one night. And I was flipping channels. This is before your class. And I stumbled upon this show called Being Human. And I saw Katie on the screen. And I don't know what it was. I'd obviously known people that didn't have the start I did in terms of having their foot in the door through their parents. But seeing her on the screen, I've told her the story a million times. It like took my breath away. I was like, oh my God, she did it.
Yeah.
Like, she was just a girl in high school. She didn't have her foot in the door. No. She didn't have the advantages I was so lucky to have. Just through sheer talent and will, she got in, and here she was. It was a nice, big, juicy guest star on the show, and she was so good. And I remember it just, for some reason, I don't know, it blew my mind. I was like, wow, like good, good on her. And I always remember that. And then of course, ran into her years later at your in your class. So I guess it's one of those things. I think when we're that age, in our early 20s, I talk about that. Like it was 10 years ago. It was over 10 years ago. It's like 14 years ago now. Well, I guess we all have that optimism and that. So like, it doesn't surprise me, but now it surprises me, if that makes sense. Like back then I was like, no, we're all going to do it. We're going to go, we're going to work. And of course, the older I get, I see how hard the industry is and, how brutal it is for me sometimes and other people. So now I look back on it and I go, wow, that's crazy that we're all lucky enough to be making, somewhat of a living doing this.
You guys are all doing really well.
Yeah. And at the time, I think we were just like, no, we weren't cocky or anything, but I think we were like, yeah, we're gonna push through and we're gonna do this. We're gonna make it happen. But yeah, now a little older, I look back, I go, it's wonderful that it happened, and it's kind of crazy.
There's the naive, like you're naive at that age, so you're optimistic. You're like, yeah, of course that we're all gonna be like,
we're working now. We're just gonna keep working.
Exactly.
It's not how it works, but yeah.
Well, Robin and I were running the school together at that point, and we used to call it the cool kids class. And we kind of felt that we didn't say all of you, but we did feel that this was the cool kids class and they were going somewhere. Like this class had potential. They were all really talented, really. It's a combination, talented, ambitious, and like you say, not naive, but this like, we're going somewhere. Like you knew it. You're like, we're gonna make it, So, and you did. And I knew there's dry spells and challenges for all of you in between. That's just that's the business. But it's pretty exciting now. Like it was, I think it's about 11 years ago, 11, 12 years ago that you guys were all in. Because I remember some of you more than others, but about a year where it was like the cool kids class and there was a vibe, and it was really exciting to teach too, because everybody was so good. And I remember, I can tell a story about Jesse. I mistakenly, I think he was about 19 at the time, cast him as Tony Soprano with Erica. And they played that scene and he put a hole in my wall because he was so into character.
Well, let me give context, because Suzanna you're so good at pinpointing not necessarily weakness, but like blind spot in terms of like something that I had never played before. Right. And you said, let's not make you likable. Let's give you something like anti-hero. And we were doing it. And what happened was, I remember doing the scene with Erica, and obviously, everyone knows this. It's very well known. I was like super in love with Erica at the time.
Right.
Who's now still one of my best friends. You knew this. I spoke to you about this a lot, Suzanna. Yeah. But I was like so in love with Erica at the time. And I was doing this scene with her, and I was trying so hard to be like intimidating James Gandolfini. Yeah. And I could see it in her eyes. Like I knew, like I didn't feel it. She wasn't feeling it. I was trying so hard. So I was like, what can I do that's scary? And I was like, and I was getting frustrated that I just knew it wasn't working. And so I went to hit the wall thinking I was going to hurt my hand, because I was like, but it was drywall. Yeah. So my fist went right through. Yeah. That's not my finest moment. That's for sure.
It was so funny. And I'll have you know, another student came and fixed it for me. So it was very sweet. So it was all fine. It all worked out. He was like, oh, I love drywalling. I'm like, okay, you can do it because I don't know what to do, and he came and fixed it. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say the frustration really helped you in that scene.
It did. He was scary.
And you know what's funny? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's because I like fully after I hit the wall and I saw it, I think I kept going, but I was not connected at all anymore. I was like, oh my God, I broke the room. Like, and Erica gave like one of those, like, oh my God, you just broke the wall. And yeah. And we kept going. And I think you finally said cut, and there was like a silence, and you went, okay, well, that was something.
You didn't book the room, you broke the room.
That's so funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the reason
don't punch the wall.
Well, Jesse had done a lot of theater at that point, and he knew, and he's very careful on sets and stuff. So I want to put that he's not like one of those method actors who's going to like destroy everything. It was like he said, it was just a moment, and the wall was a drywall cheap piece of wall, and he was just, I'll do something physical, not hurt anybody or hurt anything, just to kind of amp the energy. So I just want to reiterate, if anybody's listening, don't be scared to hire him. He's not a hothead. He's a sweetheart. He's very respectful.
So then how old were you when you booked Less Than Kind?
Yeah, Less Than Kind, I was going into grade 11, which for those outside of Quebec, grade 11 is our final year in high school here. I remember specifically getting that breakdown in those slides, because I went, oh, this is me. Like I read the character description, I said, oh my God, I've never connected with something like this. Like this is me on the page. It's only happened to me twice, and the other role I didn't get. So but I said, oh my God, this is me. So I think I was 16 when I got that audition, and I think I might have been 17 when we started shooting. But yeah, I was 16, I think.
Cool. And what was that experience like?
Are you talking like the shoot itself, or the audition, or kind of the overall umbrella of it all?
Yeah, because it was in Winnipeg, right? So were you in school at that? Like, yeah, just like give us the rundown of everything.
Yeah. So that show was, it's so hard for me to pin down, because I've been so lucky. My favorite thing, or the thing that resonates with me the most in terms of my career, but it would be that show. I think it's the thing that helped me grow the most, I think, as an actor and as a human being. I read for it when I was 16, and then I got a call about a week later saying, they really liked your tape. You're definitely a favorite, but you're also the first tape they've seen.
Right.
Oh, well,
Thanks.
All right. To me, whenever I hear that now, I'm like, oh, I'm not booking this. Like,
right.
Not a chance. And then a couple weeks later, they said, one of the creators, Mark McKinney, who's obviously famous for The Kids in the Hall, and he was just on Superstore, which ended a couple years ago. They said, he's going to be in town for the Montreal Comedy Festival, and he wants to meet with you for lunch. So, okay. So we went and we had lunch, and it was really nice. And he was wonderful, but he goes, listen, we're still looking at people. We're still, the process isn't done, but I wanted you to know you did a really great job. And I thought that was such a nice meeting. I didn't come away with it thinking that the job was mine at all, but I also walked away going, oh, there's nothing more I could have done. So I'm sort of at peace with this. And then I got a call back again a couple weeks later in Toronto for the other creators, Marvin and Chris, and the producer, Ira. And then I heard a couple weeks after that I booked it, and then I did the chemistry read with some of the other cast that they were still looking for, and that's when we kind of rounded it out. The great late Maury Chaykin, I played his son, and then the woman who played my mom passed away about a year and a half ago, Wendell Meldrum. Yeah, she was wonderful. It was an amazing experience. I was in school for the first season. We went from October to February, so I did my first month and a half, and then I left for that chunk, and I was tutored on set, and I did that whole thing, and then I came back end of February. And then I left. I was in Seja when we were renewed. And so I kind of just left Seja to keep shooting. And then we did 4 seasons, which was incredible.
Amazing.
4 seasons. Yeah. 4 seasons over 5 years. But we had more lives than a cat. I mean, the show premiered to record low viewership. No one watched the show on City TV. But City TV had loved the show so much that they'd already renewed us before we aired. And they were already committed. So we shot our second season, even though we were like, well, no one watches this show. we shot the second season. We're like, well, now the show's done for sure, because, and then the second season ended and City kind of shelved it. They didn't even have a place for it anymore. So we definitely thought we were done. But then HBO Canada, which doesn't exist anymore, loved the show, bought it, and said, we want a third season.
Wow.
And then 3 weeks out from shooting our third season, Maury Chaykin, who played my father, passed away. So then we again thought we were done. Around this time, I started taking Suzanna's class. I made a movie called Happy Slapping with Alex Harouche and Erica Deutschman. And then we shot our third season without Maury. And then we knew when we ended our third season, we were going to do one more. So there were so many times we thought we were done for sure, and we just kept going. It was a critical darling. We won awards, and people who saw the show loved it. But
I saw the show. I loved it.
Today.
Yeah, it was a great show, but it was a great show, but it was kind of like, not to compare, but I know Arrested Development, they said it was the same sort of thing, and then Netflix picked it, and it was a great show, but nobody watched it. It was just like, nobody watched it, and Less Than Kind was great, and you were great. This was your you were fantastic in it, and it was a darling show. So who knows? We'll see, right? Maybe I saw there was a Facebook thing. Is it coming back? Are you guys trying to get it back?
Well, I was gonna give a shout out that for everyone listening in the US. I know there is a Canada release date coming soon. I don't know exactly when. But all 4 seasons are currently on Tubi in the States. So if you're in the States, check it out. I think, I'd say watch the first 5 episodes. I think our pilot, we're finding our footing a little bit. But then by episode 5 or 6, if you're in, you're in. And it's a blast. And, there's always been whispers of wouldn't it be a fun show to revive in some way? I think it's a tough sell because obviously, it went for 4 seasons and didn't catch fire in terms of viewership, but I strongly believe in today's market the show would do really well. I think we were just a little too early. But I'm so proud of every second of that show. It was a blast.
That's
So
such a good
cool.
story. Yeah. Yeah. I really liked it too. So I thought it was great. And
Yeah.
your acting was stellar. I mean, I can say that. It
Thanks.
still is. I mean, listen, you were in class and I knew it then, but I watching the show, it was like your transitions are flawless. Emotionally, you're always like right on point. Your choices are always interesting and smart, but it's like fluid.
Well,
Like
thanks.
it's so honest and natural. You unless you're an acting coach analyzing his performance, you don't know it. You're just you're in it, like you're in it, like he just takes you for the journey. So it's yeah, it's good.
Thank you so much. Well, the character was basically me, so it was kind of easy in that way. Like, the writers would come up to me once in a while and they'd be like, how does this feel to you? Because we were writing you essentially, and they knew what they were doing. So yeah, it was the greatest dream come true. I'm still so tight with everyone involved in that show, and I will be forever. It was the experience of experiences. So hopefully I haven't peaked, but it was a great peak if that was it,
No,
because it was wonderful.
oh, I
But
don't
that's
think
what's so
you've peaked.
cool about like all the streaming services, like, that content, that project, it'll be forever. And it could, breed new life, and you never know what could
You never
happen.
know.
So that's amazing.
Yeah, you never know. Fingers
yeah,
crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers
for
crossed.
sure.
Yeah.
So the other question we had was, I mean, maybe this is like, me and Suzanna call this a bit like woo woo, but you've had a lot of recurring roles and you have a lead in that show, and like there is weight, there's responsibility to it. So we feel that sometimes maybe actors fear that responsibility, and maybe that's why they're not like, beyond the work and the talent and the given, but we feel that maybe there's fear that's holding people back. So can you tell us like a bit about what that felt like to, for 4 seasons? Like that's a lot to carry.
Yeah, because you were the
Yeah,
lead.
I mean, yeah, I was lucky. The character was definitely sort of the focal point of that show.
Yeah.
But what was great about it was because I was, around 17, and I had somebody like, Maury Chaykin on set with me, who he had played my father the first 2 seasons. A guy, was a veteran who'd been in like well over 100 things.
Yeah.
It was easy to kind of follow in his footsteps, and just watch how he carried himself, how he treated the crew, which for the most part exceptionally well, right? For the most part, all the time, he was great.
Right.
And it was my character was definitely the center of that show, but it was very much also kind of an ensemble. It was about that whole family, and I was just kind of the audience's perspective. So I did get to share some of that weight. I just love working with people. I love cast members. I love being a team. So I definitely got to share that weight a little bit. But I think the cool thing about it was when you are either the lead or one of the leads of that on a set, you can actually sort of affect the mood a little bit. That was something that was kind of eye-opening to me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like, there were days where I would, start late because, again, it was an ensemble show. I'd come in later, and I could sense, this wasn't on Less Than Kind necessarily, but like, people were a little tired, or maybe that there was an incident that happened earlier, and I'm just so happy to be on set. I would be like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to lighten the mood. And it's just funny how the crew can really absorb that energy, and likewise, I can absorb the energy of the crew. Like, and when you're high up in terms of character on the show, you have more of an influence, it feels like. So that was something that I didn't take lightly, and I just loved being part of that entire cast and crew. Like, it was just so much fun. The fact that I was high up on the rung on that show, maybe it was definitely intimidating the first like couple weeks, but by the end it was a joy. I actually found, and I know we're gonna talk about Locke and Key soon, I found that to me is almost scarier, coming in as like a recurring or a guest spot. That to me is way scarier, because you're not not that I need to drive the bus, but you're certainly not driving the bus. So your job's more to just to kind of stay out of the way. That's almost kind of scarier to me.
How interesting. So that's interesting. So you're saying when you're a lead, and I know you keep saying ensemble, but you were the lead of that show. But yes, you had a rest of the cast was fantastic. Like you worked together as a fine-tuned machine for sure. But you were the focal point. You were why we would say the lead. And so you were
I'll
feeling
take it, I'll take it, I'll
just
take
take it. That's I'm trying to find a word. But
I'll take it.
but you find that because we were thinking that would be really like a lot of responsibility to play the lead, but you're saying that could almost be less because you're there every day. You're part of the discussions of how sort of how it's all going to roll, and you have strong influence. And when you're playing a recurring that's supporting the storyline but not driving the storyline, then you're trying to find not how to be invisible but how to help like be part of it without
impeding it in any way.
And you don't want to overstep. You're like, where am I?
Yeah.
Exactly. And with Less Than Kind, yeah, you're right. You're part of those discussions. And yeah, I think definitely can be intimidating. And maybe I'm not giving enough credit to the creators and the crew and the rest of the cast on Less Than Kind, because they just made it really easy. And not that it wasn't on Lock and Key. They were wonderful on Lock and Key. I just mean going in, like that first day of getting in there. Is on Less Than Kind, I feel like you just have more runway, obviously, as a lead of a show. You have more room to try and fail, and like you're part of you're almost a team with the creators of like, let's all get together, put our brains together and make this work. Whereas when you're recurring, someone else is doing that. You've got to come in and be like, I've got to fit in there, or I'll get killed off in the next episode. Like, again, wow. That was never like they never threatened that or anything. But that's like my mind. It's like
right, okay.
So that's for me. And again, maybe on another, if I'm ever lucky enough to be in that position again, on another show that's like even more focused on me, like the show is like all about me specifically and no one else. Maybe I'd be like, this is scary. Like I'm carrying this entire thing. But on Less Than Kind, I felt like, if I, for whatever reason, have an off day, I've got Maury, I've got Wendell, I've got Ben, I've got Nancy, I've got Brooke, I've got all these people that are around me. There's 3 other storylines in this episode. If my one doesn't sing for whatever reason, I know they've got it.
You've kind of said this, but like mindset, do you get still very nervous and stuff depending on the project? I mean, you've been doing this since you were a kid, but is it still there?
There's always nerves, especially on the first day.
Okay.
But Lock and Key specifically, I was really nervous jumping in because that was a big Netflix show. The creator had created Lost, which was my favorite show in high school. And I was recurring on that show, and I ended up doing like a little more than half of the episodes. But I came in on like the last 2 shooting days of the first block. So they'd been shooting for a month and a half.
Right.
So I came in going like, I cannot do anything to slow this down. Like I've got to go. And you're right. It's that mixture between be invisible, but leave a mark.
Right.
Yeah. It's like be memorable, but be invisible. And that was very, very, I was very nervous going onto that set. Of course, after 3 days, they were all fabulous over there. And I wasn't nervous at all. But yeah, those first couple of days, I was very, very nervous. And still am on the first day on anything.
Yeah.
Right. What about callbacks? I thought that when you were talking about like your callback for Less Than Kind, when you're like, now you're in front of the creators and the writers, when you go in for television, there's like 12 people on your third callback and it's like such a big crew. You're,
or now it's on Zoom screens.
Now it's on Zoom screens. Yeah. But was that pressure? Did you feel high pressure there, or were you able to or how do you just perform in front of that? Because it's high stakes. So many people for television are making those decisions.
Well, I don't know if I would say I'm fortunate or unfortunate in this way, but when I was a kid, I had a couple really close calls where I went down to LA and I did network tests.
Yeah, that's what, yeah. Okay.
But I was, fortunate enough to do those. Yes. And I remember one of them, I walked in and it was literally a theater. It was on the studio lot, but it was, I guess maybe it was between sitcoms or whatever. It was a stage. And there were, I gotta think, 40 people watching.
Oh my God. Wow.
That was incredibly intimidating, especially when it's a comedy.
Yeah.
A comedy and they don't laugh at the first punchline. You're like, oh my God, how do I turn this around?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I get really. I always say I don't think I'm the greatest auditioner. Like I think I'm okay. Um, but I'm somebody, and of course I feel like every actor says this. I'm someone who really comes alive and into their own on set, like
Right.
working. Like okay, I don't have to worry about it. I have the job. I'm here now. I feel like I have time. I can play. I'm not too scared to make a choice. Like because I have a shorthand with the director or the creators or the writers. And if they shut something down, I'm like, well, now we're buddies, so no problem. Instead of just going into a room and taking a risk, and maybe they're just going, thank you, and you leave, and you're like, oh, did they hate that? Are they never going to see me again? So yeah, I definitely I get very nervous. Callbacks are very scary. I mean, I obviously have been fortunate enough to do many of them, but it doesn't. I thought it would get easier. I still get really nervous for a callback. Yeah.
Do you do anything? Like, is there something you do or just breathe? Like, do you have like Alex was saying, I think right before he talks, he takes a deep breath. That's like his thing. He always, that's kind of his thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do. Like, I'm someone who has a bit of anxiety, so I've actually got like an anxiety like breathing whistle thing
Oh,
that I
cool.
use. So I'll do breathing exercises. I don't recommend this, but I'll be honest. Years ago, sometimes I would do a shot before an
Okay.
audition
Yeah.
just to like
I knew
calm the
somebody else
nerves.
Yeah.
took a glass of wine, told me that he has
Yeah,
a glass of wine before he goes in.
easy to do with Zoom auditions now because you're in your home. But I don't recommend it. I don't think it's not a good habit. But yeah, just I think yeah, just kind of settle down, breathe. If you need your pages, have your pages. It's not the end of the
Right.
world. Like try to memorize it. But if you need to hold them in your hand, hold them in your hand. Just like it's a good security blanket. Sometimes I've gotten a little better, but usually it's just that first take. I do the first take.
Right.
I get out of the way, and then I'm like, okay, I feel settled now, and go. But yeah, I think taking a second to just breathe, ground yourself. Like they want you to succeed.
Right.
They're not bringing you into the room to see you fail. They want
No.
you to do well. Like no director or casting agent gets off on an actor struggling. Like they want, or no one that are still working probably. They're hoping you're the person. So I try to remember that. It's like, hey, everyone in the room is on your side. They want you to do well. And that sometimes like calms it down. Like they don't want to see someone fail.
No.
That's a waste of everyone's time.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about your work as like a writer producer, because you do that as well.
Yeah, a little bit. Just slowly getting into it. A lot of it is with Alex Wiener. Alex and I write together. We've written. We wrote a pilot that we shot years ago that Suzanna was in.
I was
called Fugazi.
Fugazi. Yeah. Fugazi. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Fugazi. People say.
I keep saying Bugazzi, but I don't think that's right.
Well, no, trust me. I'm showing that I'm not really Italian too. Fugazi. Which was super fun. We learned a lot. That was a great first experience. We're super proud of that pilot, but we definitely learned a lot about writing, about character work, and about the casting process. And it definitely it opened our eyes to like having more sympathy for the other side and more patience for the other side of things. And yeah, we're developing stuff now, and I'm also writing with a couple of my other buddies. This guy Peter Remiliotis and this great actor named Kevin Alves, who, for those that watch the show Yellow Jackets, he plays one of the leads on that show.
I started,
so I'm working with them a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm too scared too. I saw the first episode. It's creepy.
Yeah.
Ah!
It's an
insane,
incredible ensemble.
Yeah.
It's a great show, but it's creepy for sure. It's definitely either you're into it or you're not. Like there's definitely even my family's kind of split on it, but everyone appreciates it. Everyone thinks
it's a great show.
But yeah,
it's a good show. So good. Absolutely. Yeah.
I have to watch it on like a Sunday morning or something. You know what I mean? Like it can't be a before bed show. Like it's too scary. I'm like, I can't.
It doesn't get less creepy. It doesn't get less creepy. Like, yeah. So I've been writing a lot with them and produced a couple shorts. It's fun. It's a totally different thing. I still prefer acting.
Yeah.
But I would say after acting is probably writing is up there, and producing's fun too. It's a lot of work. And I'm inherently lazy. So there's that.
Now, we titled this podcast Book the Room. Do you have any stories where you went in, you razzle dazzled, but you might have not gotten the part, but they invited you back?
No. I do. No, I do. But I don't know if this is like, first of all, please bring back the room. I think that's my predominant thing, because I want to go in the room more. But no, I think, in terms of like great auditions, great auditions, it's a weird thing to say. Auditions I'm the most proud of. I had this one for this show. I did end up booking, but I actually couldn't do it in the end because of Less Than Kind, so I wasn't able to even do it. But it was for the show that didn't end up going. It was a superhero show, and I read for it, and my agent called me. The great Amanda Rosenthal called me like a couple of days later and said, they want to see you. I lived in Montreal at the time. They want to see you in Toronto tomorrow. And I had 104-degree fever.
Oh my God.
I was bedridden. And I've never done this. I said, no, no, I can't go. Like, there's just not a chance. She's like, you have to go. I said, Amanda, you don't understand. Like, I can't get out of bed. Like, I can't go. I'm so sick. My throat was killing me. I had a headache. Like, my nose was so stuffed up. This is, again, way before COVID.
Way before COVID, yeah.
Yes. I was so sick. And and she said, okay, you, me, and Allison Little, who's also works at the agency, like, we're all going to get on the phone. We're going to talk about it. And we spoke about it, and they said, listen, you have to go. All right. So I spoke to my parents, and I literally, the next day, I got up at 6 a.m. I got on a train to Toronto. I slept the entire train ride.
Yeah.
I woke up. My whole body was aching. I was so sick. I went to, I think it was it Lisa Parison? I think it was Lisa Parison in Toronto. I got there. I fell asleep in the waiting room. They woke me up. They said, okay, come on in. I walked in, and I guess I was very dry. They were laughing at everything I said. And the only thing I thought about the entire time was, how can I get out of this room as fast as I can? And that's just not my attitude at all. I mean, right. I remember doing the first scene. They were like, all right, can we get you to do that one more time? And in my head, I was like, oh, please don't. Let me leave.
Yeah.
And so I did it again. They were laughing. And I went right back to the train station, got on the train, fell asleep, woke up when I got to Montreal. And that night, Amanda called me. She goes, they loved it. They thought it was probably the best audition I ever did. And it's literally because I was just so sick. I was just like, I'm going to give you exactly what you want. It's like, so I don't know if that's great advice for someone to become very, very sick. But I remember that being an audition where, like, I told my parents, I was like, they loved it. Because I kind of left the room. I thought it was okay. I was like, that certainly wasn't my best work. I'm barely standing. Like, and they're like, oh, they loved you. But I think I'm good at the small talk, right. Like, in the room. That's definitely something I miss, is a personal touch. There's a nice connection. My dad gave me a great piece of advice that he gives a lot of young actors. He said, know how to leave the room.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I said, what do you mean? He goes, just leave. If they say they're happy, say thank you for seeing me and leave. He goes, he doesn't love it one more time. It's like, okay, you want me to do it one more time? Because I just went, maybe try, like, get out. Say thank you so much, appreciate it, and leave the room.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, you set that up so well, because I thought you were going to give some advice about leaving. He's like, no, the advice is leave.
Leave. Know when to leave.
He's like, just do your best. Yes. And when they go, thanks for coming in, don't try to be like, you sure? Because I can. You want me to do it with a southern accent? Because I can. He's like, get out of the room. You're done.
What are the big dreams? What would you like to see your career like in 5 years, 10 years, tomorrow? Like, what's the big dream?
Mm-hmm. I think in terms of dream, it's pretty simple. I don't need the Oscar. I don't need the paparazzi. Of course, the Oscar would be fantastic. I wouldn't turn it down. But I think, all I want to do is make a comfortable living where I'm not like super stressed, being on set, filming, acting, Obviously, a show would be great. That kind of thing. Like I already, this past year I got to do, it was a dream come true. I got to do one line in Scream 6. That was a dream come
Amazing.
true.
So
that
fun.
was off the bucket list. My favorite franchise, so that was really cool. So yeah, I would love, to get something that myself and Alex or myself and Peter and Kevin, right, like really produced and put out there to the world. That would be a massive thing. But really, it's just to, I would say, steadily work in the industry I love. It's as simple as that, really, in new and challenging ways. In terms of what's coming up, it's the stuff I'm writing with Alex, Oscar, the stuff I'm writing with Kevin and Peter. I've got a fun little role, if it's still in there, and I'm in a couple episodes of that Arnold Schwarzenegger show, the Foo Bar show, which will be really fun. And then it's back to getting in the room, booking the room.
Right.
So we'll see.
Amazing.
We'll see what happens. But it's a fun time. I have a fun feeling about the future. I think it's gonna be very positive.
Well, congratulations on everything. And it's been a blast. It was so nice to catch up. So keep up all that fun stuff.
And thanks for having me. And I'm available for you guys anytime. So
thank you so much. So for today's takeaways, 1, the nerves don't ever go away, so learn to work through them. 2, when you play a role that's close to you, don't be afraid to rely on your instincts. 3, don't underestimate how much your mood can influence the energy on set. And 4, lastly, and we'll take a cue from Jesse's note, know when to leave the room. Bye, everybody.
Bye.